Katie Gamble. I'm here with my buddy Charlie Kuhn for another episode of Clarksville's Conversation. And this gentleman's no stranger. He's always been very gracious about coming on and chatting with us, hasn't he, Charlie?
That's right. And we love having our director of schools, Mr. Millard House, with us. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. It's always good to be in the presence of both of you guys, and I appreciate you having us on.
Well, you right now are probably one of the busiest men I know in this community. You have a lot going on.
There's definitely quite a bit going on, but our job is to do the best that we can to serve this community as well. And we feel like that our reopening plan is reflective of the feedback, the data, and everything else that goes along with what the last 5 months has looked like. So we're working hard and continuing that process with a fluid plan.
Now, you told us in a previous interview that you guys have put together a committee that kind of helps you oversee these COVID issues. Talk to me a little bit about that committee, who it's made up of, and how they all came about.
So it's interesting. We do have a committee, and that committee is our Communicable Disease Committee, and it's comprised of several different individuals from the school system. Also, the health department, the CDT, as we call them, continuously monitors and evaluates the state, local, the national landscape in terms of the data, the safety and health of students and employees. We at one point, Katie, we were actually meeting every day.
Oh, I bet.
And those meetings, would go for about an hour long, but they were efficient. There was so much changing along the way. So right now that team is made up of about 30 individuals, and
that's a big group.
It is, but we have a safety and health team already that was a part of the school system and has been a part of the school system for years. But this particular team has representation from every department, as well as guests that we bring on to speak to the team. This last week, we were fortunate enough to have a guest pediatrician, Dr. Faust, who's actually a local pediatrician. So we have another doctor that will be on this week that continues to share information with us around our reopening plans and advice that's been very good for us as we continue to move forward.
Well, I know you get a million questions and probably many new ones every day that you might not think about, but talk a little bit about the survey and parents.
Yeah.
Because I know going through this process, parents have jobs. How do they determine if they're going to be in school or virtual? How's that going to work?
So the school system sent out an electronic form survey to parents early on to really get a feel of exactly how many parents, wanted to think about the possibility of some kind of virtual education, and vice versa. And the interesting thing is, as we look at our data now in terms of the number of students that have enrolled, in comparison to that initial survey data that we sent out, it's very consistent. So I think the difference between the data or the survey that we sent out early on is that we only had about 50% participation. Now, in terms of signups, we've had over 80% of the community to sign up, and 60% of the parents out there have essentially signed up for traditional schooling, and about 40% have signed up for our virtual school. So the survey was a really good starting point. I think we were at about 35% that we're looking at virtual, whereas we're looking at about 40% now. So we were very consistent. So that was helpful in our planning. And we do have to reshuffle some resources. And that's why we have a cutoff of the 23rd, which is just in a couple of days. And it's a tough decision for any parent to make. Much like you guys, I'm a parent of two, and we had to sit down and have that conversation with our elementary student and our high school student in terms of exactly where we were going to land as parents and as a family as well.
I like that you say you had a conversation with your kids, because that's exactly what I did. I have one going to middle school and then one going to high school. And we're doing traditional, and I applaud everybody for being where they're at and being comfortable where they're at. But for us, I mean, my kids, they needed the interaction. They were ready to get back, and it wasn't even they didn't think about it. No, I want to go to school.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's interesting, Katie. For us as a family, both my wife and I work, and my daughter, who's in high school, we felt like she could make the choice and do it. And she actually chose virtual. She's a 4.0 student, has done well, is very responsible, did much better than her father ever did, and mother too. But my son, it was a little bit different, mindset. He's elementary, and he said, "Dad, I miss my friends, I miss my principal, I miss my teachers, and I want to go back to school." And so we're a split household. We've got one that's going back, and we have one that's going virtual, and we're going to make it work.
Well, that's the beauty of it. You need to be okay wherever you're at, and you've given everybody that option, and there's no right or wrong.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, there's been a lot of tough decisions that we've had to make. There've been some things that people agree with, some things that people didn't agree with. But I think this decision for parents is just as tough as the decisions that we had to make as well, because and they're tough decisions that the teachers are having to make also. You're seeing nationally a surge of teacher organizations that are out there that have major concerns, and those are concerns you have to listen to and pay attention to, that are concerns that are rightful concerns that are being heard. And that's no different here in Clarksville. We have 2 teacher organizations, and we're having conversations with them every week. And we've had conversations weekly with CMCEA and PET for several weeks to make sure that they understand exactly where we are with the reopening plan, that there were no surprises to them. But even with all of those communications, there's still concerns. And those are concerns that we take, we see as very valid, and we want to pay attention to. And we're looking forward to those continued conversations with teacher organizations as well.
Well, I saw where recently you just moved someone into place to handle the virtual schooling, and I know that's going to be a big job for her. So say 40% of the kids are virtual. What happens if there's another shutdown for some reason and then everybody's virtual? How do you build reserve for that? How do you handle that?
So virtual is parent choice, and that's a school. And I think that's, and Charlie, I'm glad you asked this question because it's important that people understand that. And remote is our choice. And that's simply if we have a snow day, if we have to shut it down, like you said, because cases continue to rise and it's not a safe environment for our teachers and employees. Remote is not the exact same thing as the virtual school. So if you start out as virtual, we're asking you to stay in virtual for at least a semester because it's a specific platform. Schools PLP is the platform, and we've had that platform at our early college high school. So this is not new to us, but the expansion of it is new to us.
Okay.
Now, remote will be a little bit different in that there still will be teacher interaction, but you won't be working specifically on the platform of schools PLP. That again is a specific software, specific platform. Erin Hendricks, who was the elementary principal at Sango Elementary, who is highly regarded, very experienced, just moved into a position where she has the largest school in the school system. Yeah. And I joked with her this morning, and she was literally on her computer counting additional students that were being added to the virtual roles, K through 12. But though they are 2 different pieces, what we decided to do early on was ask the state, and I reached out to Commissioner Penny Swin and asked her, hey, we have these 13 days that we get every year, and they're called stockpile days. And we want to take these stockpile days, and instead of using them for potential snow days, potential professional development, we want to put them on the front end of the school year to give us an additional 13 days before school starts. And that will allow us to continue to prepare, give ourselves time to see how things are materializing in terms of the safety and well-being of employees and the growth or dissemination of the virus. So it gives us more time to prep, gives us more time to wait and see. And it's funny because when we talk about snow days and inclement weather days, those are really things of the past because we now have the ability to go remote. We have the ability to have a large group enroll in our virtual school. So we're able to use these stockpile days on the front end to prepare like we're preparing, and we feel good about it. I was with principals this morning, elementary principals this morning, as they were doing their first full day training. They're actually still at it right now, preparing, for the start of school and what it could look like.
So you're telling me that the days where all the neighborhood kids get together and go sledding are gone?
It's gone. Gonna have to do it on Saturday and Sundays.
You heard it here first.
Right. That's interesting concept. I mean, it does make, like, we probably will never have snow days again after this if we've learned how to do it remotely.
And, the interesting thing, this is not just for the immediate need of COVID-19. We feel like our virtual school will meet a need for a long time. There's a group of students, much like my split household, that one wants to be in traditional school and one wants to be in virtual school. We feel like that there's going to be a want and a need out there for virtual schooling for a long time. So we don't plan on doing this for the short time or for the short time period. We want to expand this, get better with it. And again, we've had it since 2018 at the middle, the early college, high school, and we're only looking to make it better and to ensure that we have the right kind of support for families to be successful in it.
So let me ask this question, which probably has nothing to do with anything, but it's just got my brain thinking when you're talking about remote. So, previously in the past, let's say you got the flu. I mean, you could be out for a whole week sick. Will this type of technology allow those students to make up their work before they come back to school in the future?
It very well could. It very well could. And some of that was happening even prior. We would hear with Google Docs and some of the other platforms that were out there, many of those teachers were communicating with kids along the way, especially at the secondary level. The elementary level, that could open up that kind of window where we could be, moving a child, in and out of remote. It's not something that we've moved forward to indicate that we're doing, but it definitely opens that door for additional growth and possibilities for the future.
Yeah, especially, I mean, there's all kinds of illnesses out there, and some of them can last for a good bit.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about teachers for just a minute. They're really scrambling right now. They've been learning how to do this virtual stuff. They've been working really hard. What kind of response have you been getting from the teachers coming back? Have you had an influx that want to retire early or move, or are they all kind of okay with it? Or is it kind of relating to the parents? I'm just curious how they feel about it, the teachers.
We've had very few COVID-driven retirements. We have had, I know, one, possibly a couple. But as we go back to the survey data, we did survey our teachers as well as our parents. And our certified staff, which include teachers and administrators, 62% of our certified staff essentially indicated that they wanted to come back in a traditional manner. And then we also interviewed or surveyed our classified staff as well. And of our classified staff, about 55% of them actually wanted to come back in a traditional sense in terms of schooling. So, that was loud and clear. You do the math, that's over, close to 60% of our total staff school-based staff that wants to come back to schooling in a traditional mindset. So again, we've only had one to retire because of COVID, but we've had individuals that have reached out and said, hey, I have underlying issues, health issues. What can be done? I still want to teach. I still have a love for children, but I'm scared. And so we've set up a line of communication where they can touch base with our human resources department, and we have somebody specifically in HR, Michael Tharp, that can develop a conversation with those individuals and talk about whether specific accommodations need to be made because of those medical issues. So we do have a small group of individuals that have qualified through those means to participate in a different way with some kind of accommodation that meets their schedule. And then there'll be some right in the middle that may not meet the have the needs medically in place to have accommodations made, but they're still scared. And those are ones that we're still having conversations with. We have a Friday conversation set up with our 2 teacher associations, and we'll continue to have that conversation because teachers' concerns are our concerns, and we can't do this work without them. And and it's important for us to make sure that we're listening to each and every concern that they have, each and every potential solution that they have. And that's one of the things that we've asked them. If you bring a concern, let's talk about not only that concern, but what a solution might look like as well. Because this is not just a Millard House time to push ideas and make decisions. This is a time for our entire communicable disease team, our teacher associations, everybody. We've all come together and we're thinking through how to develop the best solutions to ensure that our students have their needs met best.
That's awesome. Hey, I've got 2 questions. Last time we spoke, I talked to you about buses and the kids on the buses. And so how does that work when you have fewer kids traveling by bus? And what if there were some kind of breakout between some of the drivers and you lost some drivers? How do you backfill all that?
So before COVID-19, we were short drivers.
Right, it's true.
And so what we do know, as I mentioned earlier, we have 40% of our parents of the 80% that have let us know that they're going to go virtual. So we know also that we're going to have less students that are going to require transportation. But on top of that, we also, in another nifty survey, we asked our parents, how many of you plan on actually riding buses versus not riding buses? And we had 35% of our school system so far, of that 80% that have let us know, 35% of them, which equates to be about 10,000 students, that said they're going to be bus riders. And about 18,000 have indicated that they're not riding transportation. Now, in the past, we've transported about 30,000 students daily to and from school. And again, that statistic is significant. So we're going to go from 30,000 students riding buses on a daily basis to about probably, I bet you, between 10 and 13,000 that will be riding buses. So that's a significant decrease. And because of CDC guidelines, American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines, health department guidance, that decrease is going to help us significantly. So we still want to get students to and from school safely. And Charlie, to go back to your specific questions about, what if we have, positive cases that come up with employees that drive buses and we end up having a shortage, that could still hurt. But what we do know now is that we're going to have a huge influx of people that will be dropping students off that I think can help us out significantly.
Now, did I read somewhere too that every day you guys are sanitizing those buses as well? We are.
Yeah. Our operations department has put together a specific plan of after every drop, every route that they make, they're stopping, sanitizing with the necessary chemicals that meet the necessary guidelines. They're going back and making that happen before they move forward with their next route.
Yeah,
which is good. So I've heard people ask this question. It's kind of in line with what Charlie's asking, and so I want to go ahead and ask it. That I know you guys have a plan in place. Like, what is the protocol if a teacher comes down with COVID? Do you have to test all those? What is the protocol if something like that happens?
So first of all, if we get a positive, for a teacher or an employee at a school, of course, the natural thing that the health department will indicate is that person needs to go home,
Right.
And work on their health at home. And last year, of course, it was a completely different situation in comparison to this year, because there are thousands of cases across, the state. We're over 1,000 in the county right now. And so where school systems may have shut down the entire school system back in March, the focus will be that particular school.
Gotcha.
So instead of shutting down the entire district, we'll look at that particular school. We'll work with the health department, let them do their contact tracing.
Mm-hmm.
And that contact tracing is very significant. I'm sure you guys have had conversations with Joey, and they call positive cases 2 to 3 times a day, see how they're doing, find out who they've been in contact with. Well, we'll get that information from the health department and find out what students they've been in contact with, and some of that information we'll already have, because we'll know what their schedules have been.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be a case where we shut down a school for a few days, 3 or 4 days. That school goes remote instead of the entire district going remote. So it really just kind of depends on the situation. There could be, with some of the hot maps that are being utilized, there could be a particular area of town where we're seeing a lot of positives, and it may be more advantageous for us to move forward with a shutdown of a particular campus of 3.
So that campus would go remote, and I'm using the word remote because it's not virtual.
You're all over it. You are all over it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's what the possibility is. So our hope is to not see major disruptions with the learning process.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense, in my eyes, to shut it down at every school in the school system when you don't have to.
I agree.
So we're learning more every day, and paying attention to the guidance of our health officials in every step of the way as well.
Well, as we were talking, I was thinking about less students in school, and we not always, but for years have had an overcrowding problem, right? So now it looks like we might not be so crowded. So how do you plan for the future as you're looking at these school sites and expansions with so much virtual stuff going on?
So what we're thinking in reference to the overcrowding that we were seeing, especially at the middle school level, we were at 127% capacity at our middle schools and over 100% capacity at our high schools, and upper 90s in our elementary school. So we know that overcrowding is once the pandemic, whether it's 3 months from now, whether it's a month from now, a year from now, regardless of how long it lasts in our lives, in our community, the hope is, and what we know is that there's no possible way that we'll have a school ready next summer. There's no possible way that we'll have a school ready until 2022. It takes a couple years to build a school. We're making some significant headway, and I think we're further along now than we've been probably in 5 years in reference to building a school. But one of the things that we are looking at are some other ways that we could possibly, house our kids in the future, just in case a school is not built. But as I indicated, we're making some great headway. Of course, that's a whole different conversation because we have a land acquisition committee that consists of the mayor, myself, 3 board members, a few county commissioners as well. And we're meeting consistently. There's some conversations with some outside sources as well to help this along the way. So I'm excited about the headway that's being made, piece of land that's being focused on right now.
You're not going to tell us, are you?
What's that?
You're not going to tell us where it's at, are you?
I'm losing connection, Katie. Did you?
I said you're not going to tell us,
I'm
are
giving
you?
you a hard time, Katie.
He's messing with you.
Well, you never know.
Until we have a done deal, it's just not smart to say.
I know. I knew it was a long shot.
Yeah, I don't want to put that landowner out there. He's been great to work with, and we're looking forward to hopefully finalizing a deal in the near future.
So we've talked a lot. There's a lot going on. Is there anything that we've forgotten to ask you that you think that people really need to know?
You know, one of the things that I think is extremely important, we talk a lot about, you know, our current students, and but I want to focus for just a second on our seniors that just graduated. That this group of kids lost a lot, and I was in conversation with our an employee in the school system that's in charge of CTE, and we're thinking through ways of how we can continue to support that group of students, because many of them that may have had plans to go to college, and those plans, you know, have had a curveball thrown into them simply because you know, that college is online for the first semester, and they may be choosing to do something else. So we're looking at, you know, doing some reach out to employers in town to find out. And I know we've gone from a 2% unemployment rate to an 11% unemployment rate in Montgomery County. But the interesting thing about Montgomery County is you look at the community, the data, is that we still have employers that are hungry to hire. So we want to wrap our arms around that, potentially, you know, do some job fairs, invite some of those seniors back. I was really troubled with what they had to go through. They lost a lot, and I don't want them to feel like they're forgotten. They're not. So we plan on trying to do our best to continue to support them. I also want to stress that a big portion of our data is built around our incoming students. We're a growing school district. We sometimes grow by 1,200, 1,300 kids a year. We have a group of, you know, anywhere between 1,800 and 2,000 kindergartners that will enroll this school year. So I want to encourage as many parents as possible. If you haven't enrolled and you have an incoming kindergartner, please get that done. You can go over to Greenwood, our enrollment center, and schools will actually be back in their buildings in the next couple of weeks, and they can go to the schools to do that enrollment. So I think that's extremely important, because those parents will have a choice to make as well. And being that they're brand new into the school district. And the last piece would be, you know, anybody that's transferring into the school system, it's going to be important, you know, whether you're a military family or a family that's moving into our wonderful community. It's important that we get this process done so that we can figure out exactly how we're going to educate your children, whether it's going to be virtually, traditionally. We want that choice to be there, but as early as possible that you provide us with the right information, the best we can provide you with the right choice.
Well, once again, I appreciate you coming to join us. I know you've had your hands full. I would hazard a guess, probably you and the two mayors are probably the busiest people in the community right now, and there's no blueprint for how to handle a pandemic. And hopefully we don't have to do it for a long time. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for taking care of our kids. You know, as a mother with 2 kids in the school system, I'm very proud that you're the one leading the charge, because I trust you completely.
We appreciate you guys always being a positive source of information and making sure everybody has the right information as well. Dearly appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
You got it. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.